Okay, this is part two as I am addressing basically fire, sheriffs, civil servants, other organizations, whatnot. Anybody, even MAGA. Okay, all right. Now, where I left off on a little piece on evidence respective to President Trump. I want to continue talking about your rights and various items and get into the constitutional understanding of why you are owed in group one $80 million or group two $10 million. Let me continue with this and explain why certain things are not valid from certain key legal points. So we're looking again at economic criminology. Okay, this is a crucial thing for people to understand because there's a lot more to it than what some people think. Because we're dealing with a lot of different structural understanding of various types of items. So when we're dealing with the various levels and mechanisms of economic criminology, we have to understand our forefathers' writings. There was a lot of tactical table activity in writings respective to what led to the Constitution of the United States. What we have now is Constitution number five. Number five. So if I was in front of the United States Supreme Court right now, I would be arguing that there are certain items that are not legal, that our forefathers would have banned Royal German Empire constructs, belief systems, and master puppeting. Okay? That they also would have banned Marxism, communism, socialism, because they are diabolically opposing the Constitution of the United States. We have our own Enlightenment system. In fact, many of the values of our Enlightened system basically are stolen. We have a lot of people, they're criminals, they stole them. It's theft because we are popular people way back in time for what we did, creating the United States, creating the Constitution of the United States. We are the actual ultimate stepping forward into ultimate enlightenment. So you can't have, we've had two great wars with the Royal German Empire, World War I and World War II. And the proof of World War II's strongest piece is the various shell companies that the Royal German Empire made to facilitate the deal between Stalin and Germany, at which Hitler rejected at first. Eventually he went for it. And then these countries were split in half. They split them in half, okay? The evidence behind this shows shell companies and how the proposals happened in negotiation, and it's all Royal German Empire. Okay. And they're syndicate members, by the way. That's where you find the syndicate members again appearing. So, in understanding that, you also have the previous evidence that Royal German Empire gave a whole bunch of money to Lenin to send them to Russia to destabilize Russia. Extensive evidence in that area. Extensive. I don't want to go into all. I'll do other lectures where I talk about all the huge amount of mass weaponization of data. That's something that would be available if I was before the court. So they would ban these because you cannot have people who are diabolically against the core of the Constitution of the United States. Again, they've declared war on us, okay? And they want to do things to create destabilization intentionally. So all of these management systems, all of these foreign instruments that have had cross-data poisoning respective to the understanding of false governance management have seeped into universities, and these are poisons. These are diabolical items opposing the Constitution of the United States. So we have, for the learned who have looked at many of these things, they can understand it readily because they know where all these other extra pieces that fit into the puzzle. Now, for you people that, I'm a gubernatorial candidate, again, Michael Crosby, California. We have to understand your rights and how we need to update forgotten items that have gotten forgotten that have to be updated. Your land stock rights, because we have modern communication now. And we have two major groups. Actually, there's a third, but there's two major groups. An $80 million group and a $10 million group. Now, the way I come up and derive that is I got a series of lectures. There's 20 lectures on that to explain how that works and why that works certain ways. Now, actually, I think it's 28 lectures. But anyhow, so as we deal with understanding that you cannot have people that steal our enlightenment and then come up with basically a vast amount of plans to undermine, to bribe, to take control of business territories, to do all sorts of manipulations to stop us from being able to more readily go after filament winding of submarines and turret holes, incorporating cork. Okay, the Germans didn't want to see this, and they had other partners didn't want to see this, and so we have all of this evidence of people coming into the country, again, Royal German Empire, but they do it through other mechanisms. They created all these child mechanisms. They created Marxism. They created communism. They created socialism. There's all this evidence that they did this. You know, you've got Ingalls, whatever his name was. The guy was constantly visiting, bringing briefcases full of documents that were prepared by Royal German Empire and syndicate members. Hundreds and hundreds of people working on documents. And then you would have Karl Marx sit there and copy them verbatim, basically, in his own handwriting, and then have those documents being submitted. See, what we end up having is a series of documents from time to time that get generated that are by his hand. You could not sit down there and generate all these documents in a flow, respective to all the deep intricacies of the management of all the other items. What you're witnessing is these are constructs. These are constructs. This is why this guy could not win a Nobel Prize or anything like that, because there's other people that, by the way, they were paid to help make the construct items. So they would sit there and say, no, we can't validate that as his work. That's not truly his work. It's a construct. These are key things to understand. And you have to look through a massive volume of material to finally see this, to finally understand this. Now, with computers, it's eventually going to come into place. It's all going to fit into a slot, and we're going to be able to see. AI is going to be very assistive in showing us all this eventually, if we have the right AI. The problem is we have all these people that have been influenced by universities and various types of governance training that's false, because they're not legitimate. They do not follow the mathematical formula criteria of colonial constitutional capitalism. They, in fact, are created in their origin to be in diabolical opposition. They are enemies, therefore. So our forefathers, seeing this, would have disqualified it. Why? They would have disqualified it in the same way that they analyzed history of the Dark Ages and saw this panel of evil men that called themselves the church. They were always referred to in capital letters, by the way. Now, in arguments where we have many arguments about people discussing the problems with that foreign instrument that was basically imprisoning scientists and murdering people falsely, saying, oh, well, yeah, we don't know who you are. You're a witch. We'll just burn you publicly. This is mass murder. This is insanity. This is people exerting control. These are people participating and stealing people from having rights to land or anything. You know, they're controlling all of these serfs in Europe. So our forefathers, seeing in a blanket stroke all the massive death and civil rights violations respective to who those people are, this is why they stated that this particular group, which they decided to label always in capital letters, it was kind of done by other people that way too, the church, all letters have to be capitalized, all letters, which is completely different than somebody having a church or somebody creating a church, somebody exploring their faith. So this is why you have a lot of people with confusion. They go, I don't understand. We can do all these things. You can be a minister or a preacher and run for office and run for Congress. But it says separation of church. I don't understand. I just explained it to you. The reference deals with a series of arguments and tactical table management situations of logic and cogs, dealing with our forefathers, doing the evaluation of setting up to be able to understand that we're going to proclaim before God and all, which is a tactical table map on a huge table. This is our nation. This is a national security argument. Everything is national security added into the matrix. But when you get to certain areas, you have certain rights of people to say, well, tolerance. We will tolerate you to say anything that you want, but that does not entitle you to be part of the governance portion areas. You have to be loyal to the Constitution of the United States to run for office, to hold office, to vote. But if you want to be a bozo and run around saying all kinds of weird stuff, we could be tolerant. And many people today are trying to mix and misuse the understanding of tolerance, where we say, yes, we'll allow you to say anything. We have an experimental understanding, but our government is not experimental. We have criteria that we used extensive tactical table experiments on that come to this colonial constitutional capitalism. So here we have people who would try to use a series of developments of governance that come from European foreign instruments. So, and keep in mind that the data was also theft. It was stolen. I have a lot of lectures on that explaining how that occurred, and you can see it. AI is going to be very helpful in this. Google sees this. You can get Google to see it fairly readily. Other AI companies having problems, their material is tainted. They cannot necessarily print verbatim the Constitution of the United States and other key historical documents. There's also some different rights, copyrights, and so forth involving certain things to a certain point. Now, national security is working, etc. So that having been said, if I were before the U.S. Supreme Court, but I'm before the people, it's crucial for the people to understand the different barriers where we cannot allow, because our forefathers would have banned Marxism. They would have banned Royal German Empire. They would have banned communism. They would have banned socialism. These were invented after the fact. These inventions come in after the fact. Social enlightenment had different people experimenting with things all over the world, but we were the true experiment. We were the ultimate enlightenment. We were the refined, properly engineered system. These are the many arguments that we have. So, again, the forefathers did not see these things that came after. If they did, they would have banned them. They would have designated them in the same way they pointed at all capital letters the church, these evil men that keep murdering people and imprisoning scientists, and said, no, these people are a mass murderous mechanism, and no. And if you look at the numbers of mass murder, we have more than 300 million people dead in the world connected to who's at fault in origin. That's Royal German Empire, Marxism, communism, and socialism, primarily. There's others, but that's primarily it right there. So you got the real big four factors right there. So all the sub-labels, Leninism, Stalin, all this other stuff, it's the same. And these are created monsters. They are child organizations, corporations made by the Royal German Empire. And again, our forefathers would have banned all because they are diabolically opposed to the Constitution of the United States. So when you, again, real quick, ending this, when you see all of this evolved material involving in governance and management and medical and all this other stuff, and it comes from European instruments, that data was all poisoned. The tactical tables that the Royal German Empire utilized worked very, very hard to continuously do that and make permanent mechanisms that would continually evolve and continually keep adding poison. Ergo, our forefathers would not allow any of these. They would be banned. So again, you have to be loyal to the Constitution of the United States for governance management. As far as your right to go out and make any kind of painting you want and say something ridiculous and dumb, that's up to you. But you can't bring it into governance. So when we have these parties coming in with socialism into governance, those are not constitutionally allowed. Those are actually actionable. that those deal with things such as mass economic sabotage, which was also identified by our forefathers. And again, very few people understand the different treason determinations and items respective to many of these areas. So I wanted to finish up concluding part of this for part 2, addressing fire, sheriffs, all kinds of various parties. Hey, even MAGA, why not, right? Yeah, okay. All kinds of people into religious understanding and understanding the conflicts that some people have, not understanding how we can have faith in churches here in the United States, but then misunderstand the term of separation of church and what that meant. So I needed to clear that up as to how that fits into the matrix, because it was a particular alignment with a particular group of people that have a particular set of properties in which they are murderous, crazy, dictatorial maniacs. So that having been said, true spiritualism to be discovered is something for you to be your own version of a great eye, of third eye, of inner understanding of you and the way you see things. But you need to be warned and stay away from putting Marx in your head. I would not advise you to suck Karl Marx into your head, because most of us see people walking around, and it's so blatantly obvious that they have sucked Karl Marx in their head. You go, yep, they got Marx in their head. Yeah, pretty easy. Okay, we've been warned about this, right? Right? Okay, I'm going to end this right here because essentially the arguments have been covered, and I will cover it more extensively. So that gets the base understanding of the mainline understanding of groups 1, 2, and there's actually a third group, of the $80 million group and the $10 million group, because we laid the money out. Yeah, buddy, our lineage, our parents laid the money out and paid for it. And nobody has a right to just come to this country and say, oh, it's equal, I get a fair share. No, you didn't pay your dues. You didn't work hard. Okay, your parents didn't work hard. This is about lineage. This is about long-term commitment to people who worked hard, being entitled to more because they paid for more, they worked for more, and sometimes that payment was in blood. So this is why the lineage factor comes in to a vestation set of levels that's like stairs. It's tiers and stairs, because basically it's fair. It is fair. Okay, it's unfair to allow people to come in and dilute your vote and steal your rights. So there's separate voting rights that are supposed to also be connected to the governance of the stock, which now we can reissue in modern times because it's a completely different aspect of understanding.